Okay, so I checked out this hive, and these bees were clustered over here close to the corner. There's a ton of honey in the bottom box all over the place. Almost too much honey. I kind of feel like I might have given them too much syrup last fall, and they ran out of space to cluster, but I don't know. A lot of moisture build up, a lot of mold on the comb over there. I saw some cap brood, but it's a small cluster. This is just maybe 3 frames of bees and maybe a frame of brood, so it's small. Though it's probably what you would get in a nuke in the middle of July. So the plan here is I just knock them down to a single deep. I put all the honey to the side, put one frame there, and I put some more empty drawn comb in the middle, closer to the brood nest. So they have honey, but they also have space for the queen to lay. So hopefully that'll give her some room. And I'm going to go dig into this hive now. And it looks like, I know it's a stronger hive. I'm 100% sure it's a stronger hive. And if it is, and if I find some cap brood, I'm going to add a couple frames of cap brood to this hive just to get them going. Alright, so I see this top box is light. So they've probably eaten through most of their honey, even though there's there's tons of bees up here. I don't know what they've got down there, but if I have to put any honey, I got tons of honey from that hive, so not a problem. So I'm just going to take a quick look at some of the frames and see what we see. And I haven't checked, that's the bottom box, and who knows, we'll see. Okay, so let's do a recap here. This colony is weak. I didn't spot the queen in any of the hives. So hopefully I didn't kill the queen or misplace the queen during all of this mess. But anyway, honey wasn't a problem. I gave them sugar. They didn't eat it. They tossed most of it out. It looked like this. And that's it. So I also took 2 frames of mostly cap brood from this hive and very carefully checked every side of the frame for the queen, because I didn't want to bring the queen over here. Hopefully I didn't do that. Hopefully the queen is still where she needs to be over there. But they've got 2 frames of cap brood plus all the nurse bees that were with it. So that should give them a boost. This colony has tons of bees, 10 frames of bees. So they're going to lose 2 frames of bees and most of their cap brood. But I think that with the queen, the way this queen is going, I think it won't be a problem. They've got sugar bricks, and they had sugar bricks anyway. And you can see probably most of it, if not all of it, was just tossed out the bottom. I think it was the 3rd winter of my beekeeping. It was the first winter that the first time I lost a colony to starvation. And really it's the only time I've lost the colony to starvation now. I tried to do the old natural thing and only give them their own honey and not feed them sugar syrup, and they died. So after that I said, okay, from now on I'm just giving them sugar syrup every fall, and I'm getting them dry sugar or candy or sugar bricks like this, like that, just to be safe. But I don't think I need to do that anymore. That's all the sugar, and I think they just tossed most of that sugar, and they had tons of honey. So why would they eat sugar if they've got tons of honey, right? This is the original top deep, and it was a full deep of bees. All the bees have been really nice. They're crawling all over me, but they're all playing very nicely. And they're trying to find their way back in right now. They're a little bit confused right now, and it just got cold, so now all the bees are just they're landing, and they're just too cold to fly. So hopefully the sun will come out again, and that'll get them going. Anyhow, I took out those 2 frames of cap brood, looked very carefully for the queen on those frames, didn't spot her, so hopefully she's not over there, because otherwise it's going to be a battle to the death. And then these ones will be queenless, and they'll start making a queen cell out of some of that cap brood. I saw plenty of, not cap brood, they do have some cap brood, but they've got a lot of open brood. And I got a bee inside my veil. Lovely when that happens. Man, right in my ear, and then I killed him. Anyhow, so yeah, I took out 2 frames of mostly cap brood, and along with all the nurse bees with it, which is going to knock them back a bit, but hopefully it'll be enough that they can recover. They've got tons of bees, they're really going at it. I think as long as I didn't kill the queen, they'll be fine. I've reduced their deep or their box to 9 frames, because I'm going to go with 9 frames from now on. I'm going to try to go with 9 frames in the brood box from now on, just because it's a lot easier to remove frames when you've got lots of space on the sides. And I did the same thing. I added this medium super with drawn comb, and it's got 9 frames of drawn comb up top. Most of it, some of the drawn comb isn't fully drawn, but it's enough that it gives them something to work on as well. And so if they need space, they've got honey down there, and if they need space, they've got it up there. So I'm slowly converting to medium, so hopefully that'll just give them a little extra space to work and go to town and have fun. And hopefully all these bees that are just sitting here doing nothing, getting cold, will find their way back home. So I end up with 2 deeps of drawn comb and 1 deep packed with honey, and well, there's honey there too. So, and one of these frames is from the 10th frame out of that box. So I'm going to take those home. I'm going to extract the honey, and I'm going to try to make a trade with somebody for these deeps. I also found this here looks like water. It's not. It's might be it. Yeah, this is an example. This is a frame that I'd filled up with syrup in the fall, and I gave the bees some syrup, just top them up. And that syrup was still liquid. I was shaking the bees off, and all that syrup was just falling out like unripe nectar, and it was spilling out all over here. So I gave them syrup last fall, and they didn't need it. They just put it in the cells, but they didn't have time to cap it. So I'm kind of going overboard with my feeding. So I might have to look into weighing my hives from now on. So find some kind of contraption that will allow me to weigh them without actually, pulling my back out. And sometimes you get a bee crawling on your veil and you can't tell if it's inside or outside. So they've got food. They've got plenty of honey to keep them going. So they don't need to be touched for at least another 2 weeks, because there's no drones, nothing like that's going on. So there's no swarming is not going to be an issue. Hopefully though, that queen, I didn't kill the queen, and hopefully she's in there going crazy, laying eggs all over the place, and she'll just start building up here. And so I'll come back here in 2 weeks, and if I'm lucky, there'll be brood up in the top there. And I'll come back here in 2 weeks, and same thing. I just hope to see a lot of that capped brood that I just gave them will be out within probably a week. It looked like dark brood, so I think it's going to be they're going to have a lot of new bees soon. And so hopefully in 2 weeks they will look just as busy as that hive when I come back. And I'll pop the top off, and every frame will be full of bees. So that would be nice. But this queen seems to be doing well. She's got capped brood. I checked my other hives in Flat Rock last week, and there was no capped brood. There are other beekeepers on the island who have 4 or 5 frames of capped brood in their hives, but they live more inland, and it's like another world. They might as well be living in California compared to where I live. I had these hives duct taped up, all kinds of cracks all over the place over the winter, and so I just duct taped up all the cracks. You might think it'll keep the drafts out, and maybe it does, but I think it also keeps the moisture in, because I think moisture gets in behind that tape, and it just stays behind the tape, and it makes the wood moist, and it loses its porous qualities, because the wood does need to breathe a little bit, which is another argument against paint, because paint prevents the wood from breathing, and it dries out, right? But if you can't breathe, it just gets moist, and it stays wet. And I took the tape off, and this paint came off, and all this underneath was damp. So I think maybe the sealing in all the cracks with duct tape just seals in all the moisture too, because I had moisture on almost all my hives this year. The only other thing it might be was just that we had a massive amount of snow this winter, Snowmageddon as some were calling it, and they were buried in snow, and maybe that was all it is. But anyway, I may not use the duct tape, go crazy with the duct tape next year. And these bees are trying to get in because the entrance used to be up top. This used to be right above that, but now it's right here. So hopefully they'll figure it out. Man, it got cold pretty quick, just chilly. And that's why these bees are probably not flying. They're just sort of wandering around, hoping that the sun will warm them up, and then they'll fly back into the hive. But there's a good chance they're going to die there. It's funny how you see that sometimes too. you come by and there's just a perfectly good looking bee dead. But it's not dead. Tomorrow, these bees could stay out all night and look like they're going to freeze to death. But the sun comes out tomorrow, this all warms up, they warm up, and they come back to life. So don't despair. They're not dead. They've been around for millions of years. They can take it. Okay, so that's it. Okay, so I just took the moisture quilt off the top of this hive and gave it a solid inner cover. And now it's got a ventilation rim on top as well, but I've got the hole in the inner cover plugged up with some insulation, so that this hive, they've got plenty of heat retention for that brood to stay warm. You know, I put that moisture quilt on because I wanted the bees to get dry. I wanted all that moisture that was in the hive built up over the winter to escape and wick out of the hive, which it probably did, but I think it was also releasing too much heat. And right now, you need heat to keep the brood warm. I've got that inner cover in there. Basically, that's the only ventilation they've got, and that's fine for now. And that'll keep nice and warm, and the brood will stay warm.